Elephant Man Podcast Network, grown man conversation dealing with elephants in the room. It's your man DB. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell so you can know when new material is coming out. What's going on? Shalom, shalom to everybody. Blessings, blessings to you all. This is a part two of, I guess, a couple of parts of my brother, Jason Wilson. My brother right here, Jason Wilson. He owns a martial arts school in Detroit, and he has a book called Battle Cry. That mug is very, very powerful. I won't play the whole thing, but I will play some excerpts from it. I encourage you to go get that book, Battle Cry by Jason Wilson, Winning the Battle from Within. And it's talking about social and emotional trauma and within all humans, but specifically within males. So we're going to play a little bit of that, and then we're going to share some information about that. Like, subscribe, share if you can. Elephant Man _ podcast on IG. Connect with us on Facebook /podcast and also on YouTube. Blessings to you all. Shalom. Pre-recorded. I had to get a pre-recording in so I can start the week off right. Hope everybody blessed, highly favored, prosperous in this 2022. 2021 was very, very interesting. So we will basically be up in prayer and fasting for 2022. Also, 2022 started on a Shabbat. So that means, I believe, that means that we should be resting this whole year and not being sitting on our hands and not doing work. But I'm saying resting. We casting our cares upon him because he cares for us, resting in our mind, our will, our emotions, and going in confidence, not being in turmoil, getting a good night's sleep, drinking, getting so many hours of sleep, drinking some good water, you know what I mean, and have good some alkaline diet and stuff like that. So I want to go into this real quick. I'm gonna play a little bit of it. We're gonna glean on it a little bit, and then we should be done with that. So let's go ahead and share that. We're gonna play a little bit of this book. I'm gonna mute my mic so I don't get the echo. And just check this out. I'm gonna share a few minutes of this Battle Cry by Jason Wilson. Very powerful. Check it out.
1. Escaping emotional incarceration. My emotions only become my enemy when I suppress them within my inner me. Sharath Wilson. In the United States, the dimensions of a typical prison cell are approximately 6 by 8 feet, encased in steel or brick walls. One solid or barred door locks the cell from the exterior. Those condemned to life inside soon lose touch with the free world outside. Sadly, there's another prison cell that holds more men captive than all the industrialized prisons in the world. This cell block is customized for each inmate, with undetectable walls and a solid mental door that locks from the inside, keeping the hearts of men isolated from society at large. What's also extraordinary about this prison cell is that it can only be inhabited by an inmate who voluntarily turns himself in. No warrant, no judge, no jury. Just a good man who is tired of fighting to feel. He has suppressed his emotions for so long that he no longer feels them when he does something wrong. In order to keep from hurting others, he subconsciously imprisons himself to a daily life sentence of emotional incarceration. Yes, a daily life sentence, because each day when this inmate wakes up, he has an opportunity to walk as a free man, but he's so disempowered, he can't find his way out. Unfortunately, due to the lack of safe spaces for men to express our emotions, we choose to stay incarcerated because it's better than being exposed and humiliated for being imperfect human beings. I say we because I too was emotionally incarcerated. I started serving my sentence at the age of 12. Like many boys before they are influenced by this flawed world, I was kind-hearted and creative, and I loved helping people. But in the community I grew up in, the hyper-masculine black male was the gold standard. And if you failed to meet that criteria, or at least have that appearance, you'd have to fight every day to keep a pretty girlfriend. Not because you weren't attractive enough to have a girl, but because you didn't look tough enough to be with her in public. So I had to make a decision, either fit in or be an outcast. I chose option 1. I went from being on the honor roll to being a regular summer school student. My attitude plummeted, and by the time I reached my teenage years, I had mastered playing the role of a thug. I stopped hanging with my friends who were respectful and honored their parents, and I sought camaraderie with gang members on my block. The things that bothered me before no longer did. I became desensitized to bullying, crime, and misogynistic behavior. Evil had become good, and good, evil. I started carrying illegal weapons and sometimes would sneak out my stepfather's gun to impress my new friends. As the rapper E40's song advised, I practiced looking hard in the mirror every day, and as a result, the joyful smile that had once highlighted my face vanished. Although the thug life always felt like a suit too small for a young man with a big heart, I assumed I had no other choice for survival. Regrettably, I didn't realize what a THUG truly was, a traumatized human unable to grieve, until I began to break free from emotional incarceration. Since crying was universally considered a violation of manhood, those who experienced trauma could never release it. The only tears I saw on a man's face were tattooed, a symbol of death and grief. Until I broke free, I continued to suppress who I really was because living from the heart Yah gave me would have been considered soft by my peers. Fast forward to 1997, and that same boy was in a 27-year-old body. However, this would be the year I would confess with my mouth and believe in my heart that Yahushua is Lord, surrendering my life to the Most High. This conversion set me free from the bondage of sin, but I was still an emotionally incarcerated inmate. Although I made numerous attempts to leave this prison, the fear of being vulnerable was greater than my desire for freedom. Just as a dog returns to his vomit, I returned to my cell day after day. It was not healthy or safe. Emotional incarceration is a self-imposed mental imprisonment when a man confines his non-masculine emotions and isolates his heart from the world. It appears to be a safe space. However, like the majority of real prisons in the world, this institution does not rehabilitate you. Instead, emotional incarceration breeds what got you sentenced in the first place: passive aggression, unresolved anger, and abandonment, to name a few. Sadly, I chose to get married while locked up in this prison of anger and pain. I was a good man, blessed with a beautiful family. My loving wife, Nicole, and my beautiful daughter, Alexis, would get to visit the real me on my birthday, Father's Day, and any event that made me feel safe enough to come out of my self-imposed cell and express positive emotions such as love, joy, happiness, and gratitude. Nicole and I often had our conjugal visits, and in 2007, the Most High blessed us with a son, Jason Jr. My son was truly an answer to prayer because he influenced me to leave my emotional cell more often. But as always, just before sunset, I would embrace Nicole, Alexis, and Jason, and then shrink back into the cell I'd built. Before I would fall asleep, I would ponder how good it felt to be free from depression, hopelessness, confusion, and unresolved anger. And I would wonder, why can't I do this all day, every day? This unhealthy cycle eventually took a toll on my relationship with Nicole. And after 17 years of marriage, we considered separation. Some people change when they see the light, while others convert when they feel the heat. I was the latter. I tried my best to be a man and hide my feelings again, but the thought of losing my family without a fight was unfathomable. So I decided to walk out of emotional incarceration and step into a boxing ring, or more accurately, an MMA mixed martial arts cage, for the fight of my life. Staying free would require me to grapple with the toxic thought patterns and emotions that kept my brain in a fight or flight response. The fight or flight response is the brain's reaction to acute stress, preparing the body to defend itself against danger. When our brains are stuck in this physiological response, emotional intimacy and vulnerability can feel like a threat, resulting in relational conflict and coercing us to live from our fears instead of our hearts. Hurt people not only hurt people, but they subconsciously keep hurting people and themselves. The conflict inside my mind seemed like a war being waged for my soul, and my psychotherapist, Dr. Tim Bro, confirmed it was. But why was I still losing this war after I had surrendered my life to the Most High? Unreleased trauma. Growing up, I never felt comfortable expressing any emotion that wasn't masculine. My father and male family members programmed me to suck it up. It's likely that their fathers and brothers had challenged them to do the same. But hearing this message is like inhaling the fumes from a car's exhaust pipe. You only have so much time before the poisonous gas creates toxicity in your body and you die. When I was 9 years old, I loved being outside with my puppy named Kobe. One day, Kobe got away from me and playfully ran down my block past a group of teenagers. One of the boys attempted to stomp on Kobe's leash to stop him from running, but his foot landed on Kobe instead, crushing his rib cage. They all laughed as I carried my puppy's limp body home. My mom and I rushed Kobe to the vet, but the only option was to put him to sleep. Although my eyes tear up as I type this, I did not cry that day. Instead, the hurt I was taught to suppress became deep-rooted hatred, and I plotted to severely hurt or kill the teenage boy who had stomped the life out of my puppy. If I had been taught that crying is normal and healthy for men, I could have cried to release the emotional pain of Kobe's death, and I probably would have had the capacity to forgive, but I didn't. So I praise Yah that the boy's family moved off our block a couple of years later. Hurtful, disappointing, and traumatizing events happen. They are a part of life in this imperfect world. But if we have no outlet for our emotional responses, they begin to stack up on top of one another until we feel buried, overwhelmed, bitter, and resentful. By the time I became a man, I had mastered repressing my humanity and living only for masculine attributes such as strength, courage, and aggression. I had become emotionally imbalanced, unable to express how I really felt, and constipated with cares, but refusing an emotional enema. The hardest thing for a man to do is deal with himself, to confront his own emotional pain and trauma so he can stop inflicting it on others. In many vain attempts to find peace, he's more likely to keep evading the real problem, himself, and perpetually blame others for what he sees in the mirror. In a spiritual context, man is the head of woman. 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 3. However, if the head of the house stays negatively affected by past emotional pain and trauma, those underneath his roof will be traumatized as well. The human traits of caring, compassion, and empathy are beneficial, especially in relationships, and crying provides a healthy release for trauma. Biochemist Dr. William H. Frey discovered that emotionally induced tears contain not only water, but stress hormones that are released from our bodies through crying. Ironically, his research also revealed that people with stress-related illnesses cry less than those who are considered healthy. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of your emotions. My emotions were destroying my life and taking my family down with me. When it looked like my marriage was going to end, I knew something had to change in me. I couldn't bear the thought of losing Nicole and the family Yah had blessed me with. Although I alone had to take the first step to emotional freedom, the process of attaining the healing I deeply desired for myself and my family could not be achieved unaided. It is written, though one may be overpowered by another, two can withstand him, and a threefold cord is not quickly broken. Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 12. New King James Version. When I pursued the professional help of Dr. Tim Bro and camaraderie that welcomed vulnerability, I finally learned how to cry like a man, releasing years of trauma and emotional pain that had been suppressed in my heart and mind. I was finally free to feel. The feelings that masqueraded as anger were now liberated to be expressed without fear of looking like I was mentally fragile or milksop. Now that I can verbally process my emotions, Nicole and I no longer guard our hearts from each other. Instead of holding grudges, we embrace our desire to trust each other's intent. The peace in our home is tangible. The release of toxic emotions from my childhood empowers me to parent with patience, and my transparency opened the door for my children to be vulnerable with me as well. All men desire and deserve this kind of peace, and we can attain it if we are willing to fight for it. Since the beginning of man's history, a lack of emotional stability, the ability to confront, conquer, and communicate our emotions with composure, has hindered us from resolutely walking in Yah's purpose for our lives. Not only are emotions indicators of what dwells in our hearts, Luke chapter 6, verse 45, but if not mastered, they will lead us to death. Proverbs chapter 16, verse 25. On Tuesday, July 12, 2016, at 4:30 p.m., this truth will be solidified in my life as I stepped into Yah's mission for me to emotionally liberate the lives of boys and men.
Praise Yah. Praise Yah. Okay, man, that's a lot to unpack there. So, like I said, go get that book. I didn't want to just play the whole audio book. I played part of it. Reason chapter 1, Jason Wilson, Battle Cry. He got a Kata, Cave of Dulam, up in the Detroit area. Very, very cool. Very, 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 very serious, man. He had so much stuff in there, man. But one of the things, like I talked about from the last time we had talked, was about winning the introspective war. The introspective war. Introspective, self-examining and self-analyzing, looking inwards, right? So that's what I was talking about. If you haven't seen that first episode, make sure you check out that first episode. I'm not going to go over that information again. But, man, we deal with a lot of trauma, you know what I mean? And I remember that song from E40, Practice Looking Hard. You know what I mean? That's like a shell. That's that incarcerates you instead of liberate you. You know what I mean? But you don't want to be vulnerable. You don't want to be looked upon as the weakest link. So people practice looking hard. You know what I'm saying? So they don't have to deal with a lot of different things. He said, my emotions become my enemy when I suppress the inner me. My emotions become my enemy when I suppress the inner me. That is so amazing, right? And so we can become emotionally incarcerated and don't even know it. So we have to cast our cares upon him. Let's get that scripture real quick. Let's go to this first John 4:18. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear, because fear have torment. He that feareth is not made perfect in love. So we got to let the Most High let us be perfect in love. You know what I mean? And it's perfect love casts out all fear. And 1 Peter 5:5. Likewise, you younger, submit yourselves unto the elder. Let's just project that real quick, so you can see what I'm seeing. All right, very, very good stuff. Let's see, Blue Letter Bible. Likewise, you younger. Let me see. Yeah, it's on there. Likewise, you younger, submit yourselves unto the elder. Yea, all of you be subject to one another, and be clothed with humility. For Yah resisteth the proud and give grace to the humble. So he resists those who are prideful, but he gives grace to the humble. Humble yourself, therefore, under the mighty hand of Yah, that he may exalt you in due time, casting your cares upon him, because he cared for you. Be sober and vigilant, because your adversary, Hasatan, the devil, as a roaring lion, walking around, seeking who he may devour. So his perfect love casts out fear. He resists the proud but give grace to the humble. So we got to walk in humility and humbleness. And it is a lot of trauma. Even coming to the awakening, or somebody who's watching who don't know what the awakening is. I mean, it's a lot of different trauma. People were talking about church hurt and not just only church hurt, just a whole bunch of different things. You got to cast your cares upon the Most High and know that He has a plan for your life, and know that He's for you. And Scripture says, if Yah be for you, who can be against you? But we got to remember that by meditating on this word day and night. You know what I'm saying? So we got to make sure that we always practice the presence of the Most High. Okay. But he was saying also hyper masculine black males. That's what we see a lot today in our music videos and drill music. And man, I've listened to some of the lyrics in the drill music. It's so hateful, and it's dealing with self-hate, right? It's coming from broken homes. It's coming from just a broken position, and the music is so hateful when you're talking about digging up one of their loved ones and then killing, and dismembering the body. It's like, dang, you know what I mean? It's a lot of pent-up anger and anguish and anxiety and a lot of trauma that we have not dealt with. You know what I mean? And so that's why I say in this age, in this hour, in this time, we need true alliances, not no covert alliances. The covert alliances is like, hey, I'm coming alongside you. I'm going to help you out. I'm going to hook you up, this, that, and the other. But then they have a certain agenda. They have a certain reason why they linking up with you, because they want their stuff to be fulfilled, or they try to do something else. So that's not a genuine alliance. But somebody who has empathy for me, who's standing in the gap for me, who's praying for me, not just me. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about for us. You know what I mean? So we deal with a lot of emotional trauma, and it said it desensitizes us. It desensitizes us, so we can't feel. So we can't empathize with others or sympathize, right? As misogynistic behavior. And this is very interesting. He said this: thug, THUG, stands for traumatized human unable to grieve. A traumatized human unable to grieve. Wow. And then he's saying crying was universally considered a violation of manhood, because you'll look soft, you'll look weak. You know what I mean? But it's kind of crazy. I remember when Jordan had won the title. I think it was the one, like I said before the last show, he had won the title. He hugging the trophy and he crying. You know what I mean? That didn't make him look weak. That looked upon like, man, he won the title and he was excited. But one thing he was broken, because I think it was the fourth title, if I'm not mistaken. That was the one that his pops weren't there, because the first three he had won in Chicago, his pops was there. Then his pops had died. Then he walked away from the game, did something else. He did baseball. He did a lot of golf. He did other stuff. Then he returned to the game. And then upon his return to the game, they ended up winning that three more. But then that fourth one, when you look up into the stands and Pop's not there, I think that, it was a victory that he won, but he was social and emotionally drained, as a leader. And I was like, wow, that's really, 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 really crazy the way that hit him like that. All right. So I want to look at some of these other things that he talked about that's very, very, very interesting. Then we're going to get off here because we already had a few minutes in. Okay. Emotional incarceration. And he was like, one thing he was saying, said they'll get a visit from the real me. Like he had two hymns. They get a visit from, he said, talking about his family, would get a visit from the real him when it's on birthdays, Father days, or joyous occasions. You know what I mean? But then after those festive days would leave, or times would leave, he would go back into this social emotional cave or cell. You know what I mean? He locked himself up in this social and emotional cell. And this is even after salvation, because he said he gave his life to Yahusha in 1997. But he was just saying, it's layers. It's things that still need to be done. It's things that need to be unpacked, right? And he was talking about the tattoo tears, folk going to prison, and they get the tattoo tears, and it represents death or grief. You know, that's crazy how our own tear ducts can't produce tears no more. They all cried out, all dried out. So you got to tattoo tears, you know what I mean, on your face, man. That represents grief and sorrow, you know what I mean, and represents probably loss of some loved ones and loss of family members and comrades, you know what I mean. And he was talking about that fight or flight response. That's very, very interesting. And I'm going to do a series on fight, flight, or stand, because we got things that's going on. We can fight, we become very combative. You know, I've done all of them. I've done the fight. You know, it might not even be a fight, you know, and I'm ready. Like, let's go. You know what I mean? And it don't have to be no physical fight. It could be a, man, let's go. You know what I mean? And then you can have a flight when it's like, man, I ain't gonna deal with it. I'm out of here. You know what I mean? And then or stand. And in order to stand, you need to understand. So in all thy getting, get understanding. That's what the scriptures say. I believe in order to stand, we need to understand. We got to understand. We got to be able to articulate and communicate as men. We got to be able to articulate and communicate. Because when we don't articulate and communicate, guess what that leaves? Fill in the blanks. It leaves assumptions. You can insert anything there. Man, his aggressive when he was in fight mode means this. His abandonment, or when he left and he was in flight mode, means that. And that might be far from the truth, right? Then you got a prophet line the Holy Ghost showed you, or whatever. You know what I mean? Start making up a bunch of stuff, and it's like, that ain't even the root issue. Sometimes it can. Sometimes the Most High will tell you what's going on, you know. And sometimes he not. Sometimes he might say to stand in the gap and pray for one another, you know. But when the Ruach show you something about somebody else, a lot of times it's going to be a confirmation, not so much a revelation. Because why he going to just lay it on you, but not lay it on that person? Now, I know there is parts of spiritual blindness and different things when you're not in your right mind. I'm not saying that. But for the most part, if you got something, you're dealing with something, it should be confirmation and not just revelation. It's hot off the press and it's going to person A, right? But it ain't it ain't coming to you. It comes to you first, because the Most High is dealing with you in a certain way. And I'm not saying people can't intercede. I'm not saying people can't read. I'm not saying people can't discern. That's not what I'm saying. But a lot of times it's more confirmation. By the time it comes from somebody else, it's confirmation before it's revelation. Because that don't make no sense. The Most High give it to somebody else. You know what I'm saying? All the time. Okay. Unreleased trauma. Suppressed hurt becomes deep-rooted hatred. Dang. Suppressed hurt becomes deep-rooted hatred. You know what I mean? And not just suppressed hurt, suppression of anything. You got, it ain't what you say, it's how you say it. And it's a way to say things to people, right? It's a way that we got to communicate and articulate, especially with those the ones we love. It's a way how we say it. You know what I mean? Some stuff is hard. They ain't going to understand it, or they might not receive it, you know, whether we right or wrong or whatever. It's not always about us being right. I always say this. It's not all about us being right. It's about him being righteous. You know what I mean? It's not about us being right. It's about his righteousness. That's what I mean. That's what I would say. It's not about us being right. It's about his righteousness. And what I mean by that is we so wanted to, you know, always every turn of the corner, debate, debunk, and we don't have to do all that. You know what I'm saying? Yahusha, he was a sheep led to the slaughter, but no reputation. He didn't say a mumbling word sometimes. And they was the people that was accusing him was wrong as two left shoes, right? He didn't have to go fight and defend his position. It's like, man, look, I ain't got to defend. I ain't got to tell you anything. And so we don't have to do that. We don't have to justify a fight and defend our position. If someone come to us and say, hey, man, did you mean this, or did you say that? Or what's going on when this happened or that was said? You could communicate with them. They get it right from the horse's mouth. You know what I mean? But yeah, so that's very, very good right there. Okay. Suppress emotions and live from a place okay, could create an emotional imbalance. And so a lot of times we got to never let them see you sweat. I'm doing all right. I'm not saying you're just supposed to just dump everything out, because majority of the things you should be dumping, it should be dumping on the Most High, because He know anyway. We got things that we deal with on the inside of us, and we've dealt with on the inside of us that only He know about. Only He has the tool. He's the only one that can heal us, right? So He's the only one that can heal us. And sometimes by us processing it or getting it out, you know what I mean? It's like, oh man, you ain't gave that to the Most High, because you processing, you dealing with hurt and pain and rejection, and it got all of these symptoms. It's like, no, let me process it, let me get it out, right? But even in Isaiah 6, when He said, "Who shall go for me?" and Isaiah's like, "Send me, I'll go." You have to be in a place of emotional and spiritual stability, mind, will, and emotions, surrendered to the Most High. Before you send me, I'll go, because you can't just go with a bunch of facts. You know what I mean, and a bunch of being right. You know what I mean, because you can say the right thing the wrong way and turn somebody off. You can say the right thing the wrong way, and people be like, I ain't receiving it, or they run away from the truth. They don't really understand it. You know what I'm saying? So there's a way that seems right to a man, the end thereof is death. You know what I mean? So we are wise as a serpent, as harmless as doves. And He said, with loving kindness have I drawn thee. So we got to deal with the emotions on the inside of us, and not have friendly fire and shoot up each other, right? And really articulate and communicate and understand different people's dispositions. And even if we agree to disagree. Just because people don't agree with your disposition don't mean that it ain't, and I'm not coming out from the theory of relativity, where it's like everything relative. You got an opinion, I got an opinion. No, because at the end of the day, the scriptures and the Most High and His word is the plumb line, is the foundation. The Bible says, if the foundation be destroyed, what can the righteous do? I'm not saying that, but I'm saying being able to articulate and communicate with one another in love. You know what I mean? And the people don't receive it. I mean, it is what it is. Okay. But we can't suppress and pass that stuff, because it brings bitterness, it brings anger, it brings these other different things when we suppress and pass things. You shouldn't suppress and be able to suppress. We should be able to freely. He said, freely you have received, freely give. Freely give it in love. If they're ready for it. The Most High, man, they ain't ready for that one. That will make you better, because I gave it to you, because to whom much is given, much is required. Right? So we have to get healed before we go run out. You know what I mean? And sometimes we beat up on the camps, and we beat up on the church, and we beat up on all kinds. But it's like, okay, why are them camps out there like that? Because there's been lies been told, right? There's been half truths been told, right? Somebody been telling lies. And so if you go out there without the ruach, right, and it's about being right and not His righteousness, you're going to be upset. You're going to be out there with charts and everything. You feel what I'm saying? And I'm not, ragging on them brothers, because some of them brothers mean well, even though some of the people in this church mean well. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? And they hear the scriptures, the gates of hell shall not prevail against the church. And then they go run and do whatever, say whatever, whenever, hyper grace. Aleister Crowley, do what thy will, grace. And then when you come with something, they're like, hey, man, you're trying to put us back under the yoke of bondage. You're trying to proselyte us with this new thing. You know what I mean? And the whole scripture, even Paul said, follow me as I follow Yahusha, right? So we follow Yahusha, then we follow you. You ain't following Yahusha. We're not obligated to follow you if you're not following Yahusha. You see what I'm saying? And it's not about leaving. It ain't about fleeing. It ain't about none of that. It's about, man, and you can stand in the gap, cover somebody, pray for them. You know what I mean? It ain't, it's His business. It's never personal. That's what I always look at it. You know what I mean? And it's gonna be some division sometimes. You know what I mean? And it ain't like that. You know what I mean? And it's very funny. Well, I'll get into that later, because I got another dress coming up. I ain't gonna get into that right now. Powers remove men's. Oh no, that's the other notes from the other thing I was reading. All right, your imbalanced emotions can destroy you. So we walking around with imbalanced emotions and incarcerated, emotionally incarcerated. It can destroy us. It can destroy our jobs. It can destroy our families. It can destroy our relationships. So we have to deal with them, right? We have to cast our cares upon the Most High, and we ask the Most High to process different things. You know what I mean? And we have to. Okay, we have to release toxic emotions. All right. Okay. So we need emotional stability training. The Ruach HaKodesh, his word, it gives us emotional stability training. But I like tools like this, with Brother Jason Wilson, because he's been there, done that, and he has pitfalls and strategies, and we can glean and learn from other folk too. And some other stuff that we just have to learn from the Most High. 101. And he was talking about the Scared Straight program in this book too. We got a few more things that we're gonna get out of here. He was talking about Scared Straight, and he said there was a lot of Scared Straight programs in Detroit, and they would go in. Y'all see the Scared Straight on the talk shows and Oprahs and all that, and you have a general or sergeant or somebody coming there and, oh, you think you're tough? You think you're tough? Ah! Going off, you know what I mean, yelling in their face. But he said he believed that the Scared Straight does not work. He said aggressively yelling at angry, fatherless boys is like attempting to stitch up a wound without a needle, with the needle with no thread. Aggressively yelling at angry, fatherless boys is like attempting to stitch up a wound without a needle, or with a needle without thread. That is crazy. Discipline without love is ineffectual. Discipline without love is ineffectual, right? So I think even though with the prison systems or whatever, the way people get treated when they go into prisons, or ex-cons when they leave prisons, is that discipline, that structure without love is just ineffectual. It's cold. It's not together, right? Our boys need to be healed, not scared straight. He said our boys need to be healed, not scared straight. And you look at the different things that they're dealing with, and our heroes are showing toxic masculinity on the airwaves, right? And we misogynistic, and we got the way we treat our women and our queens on the radio and the videos, right? And we got a lot of different things going on. We got self-hatred, right? So and we take it out on one another, right? And so we need to be healed and not scared straight. Then you go into a classroom setting and you're trying to get this piece of paper or graduate or whatever. And I'm not against structure. I'm not against education. But then you got a condescending teacher. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? And so they like, man, this arena, and some guys ain't taking it. You know what I mean? On the street, they practice looking hard, being the alpha male. Then they come into this, they don't see the value in an educational classroom setting. And again, sometimes it's a time for everything. It's time to sit and learn. Sometimes it's time to interact, and sometimes it's time to fly the coop. But if we don't understand the purpose and we don't have value attached to it, then when we go into a classroom and somebody up there talking crazy, you talk crazy back. That's how you was raised in the streets. And so the principal and the admin got the teachers back because that's their domain. That's their classroom, right? And so y'all got this power struggle going on. Know how to stand down. Meekness is not weakness. Meekness is strength under control. And so you're dealing with this meekness, and then you can be able to go in there and get what you need from that teacher. I mean, sometimes you might not have another teacher. Sometimes you might look, if it's core 40 in high school, hey, you got to get them. It's not core. It's like I said, it's not called core 39. It's called core 40. So you need all 40. Even that one English teacher, that sociology teacher, whatever that you don't care about, you got to go in there and go get that. They got something that you need if you want to get your diploma or your degree or wherever you trying to pursue higher education. So you got to be able to go in there, humble yourself, get what you need, and come on up out of there. But see, we don't know how to do that. We don't know how to deal with our social and emotional issues. If you hear something yelling, it's because my son is playing a game and he's excited or something. He might be losing if he's getting that excited. But anyway, so we have to do that. We have this social and emotional thing, and then you go on the street, a racial profile, not all the time, but it does happen. And we got people living in the bubble. That doesn't happen. All you got to do is just, comply and pass. No, it's happening. Cats getting blown away with toy guns and whatever, get put over for a stoplight and don't go home to see their family. That shouldn't be. All right. And then it's just a concrete jungle. It's a lot going on in some people's environment. Everybody don't have a perfect Brady Bunch life. You know what I mean? And so they have different traumas that they have to get healed from. So to be having trauma on the inside, but then you want to lead, you can dump that off over on your people. Whether you're a manager, whether you're a boss, whether you admin, or whether you're in ministry or whatever, you'll dump that over off on your people, right? That passive aggressive, that's some social emotional things and trauma that you deal with. So you have to be getting healed as well, right? You got to be getting healed as well. So that's very, very interesting to say that. So they said the scared straight inflict trauma and will not teach a boy, but it will teach him how to suppress his feelings and emotions. Pressure bust pipes, right? It's got to come out somewhere. So that's not a good thing. Okay. Fear of failure can become a barrier. A few more things. Fear of failure can become a barrier. Emotional barriers arise when we experience failure, embarrassment, and rejection. Emotional barriers arise when we experience failure, embarrassment, or rejection. Fear of looking bad or being perceived as a failure hinders us from progress and transforming our minds. I'm going to read that again. The fear of looking bad or being perceived as a failure hinders us from promotion, transforming us from transforming on our minds, right? And so it can hold us back, right? It's a fear of success, but there's also a fear of failure too. Man, I'm gonna look bad. Man, I ain't never did this before. Man, everybody watching. Man, what if I don't succeed? You have to go. His perfect love, like I said, like I read before, in 1 John 4:18, his perfect love cast out fear. His perfect love for you cast out fear. Amen. False pride and fear-based ego. So a lot of time we're dealing with false pride and fear-based ego. We got to release that. Okay, mistakes are our greatest teachers if we learn from them. Mistakes are our greatest teachers if we learn from them. If we have mistakes, but we don't learn from them, they're going to teach us nothing. They can give us trauma. A mistake can give you lifelong trauma, years and years of trauma. You keep playing that failure over and over in your head, right? And that pain of that failure plays over and over and over in your psyche, right? And it brings a mental block. So now you can't even go forth. You can't even handle it. You can't even do it because you got, man, what if I fail again? If I'm humiliated? What if I'm rejected? What if I fail and fall again? And when you have what we call L moments, you know what I mean, of crash and burn. I don't call them crash and burn no more. I call them crash and learn moments because I plan on learning from them, right? So we got to we can't be indecisive. We got to be decisive, but we got to have calculated risk and ask the Most High to give us wisdom with these risks. Because a lot of times when we run out here on our own, because we got two types of people, was more than but I'm going to tell you about two types of people that I've been dealing with as of late in my surroundings. And so it's either indecisive, I don't know, right? Or you got just, let's go, let's do it, bam. You know what I mean? Ain't thought nothing out, just run out there. So it's like the indecisive person is like, make a decision, right? Make a decision and stick with it. The wins and the learns. The L stand for learn. And you got I'm going to run out there and I'm going to take all these folk with me. You run out there, you take everybody with you. And then if it fall and crash and break, folk got to be around you to help you pick up the pieces. Or you'll go run out there and do something without people's approval or without people saying, hey man, I'm gonna be involved with that. You is involved. Let's go. And you run out there, and then if it's an epic fail, time, talent, and treasure wasted. You didn't get wise counsel from the Most High and the folk around you. So we gotta definitely work on that for sure. Countless men avoid the process it takes to become emotionally stable and remain emotionally incarcerated. Countless men avoid the process it takes to become emotionally stable and remain emotionally incarcerated. There's a fear of being vulnerable, fear of vulnerability, right? It's a fear of being vulnerable. If I run out there, then I might be vulnerable. I'm vulnerable to rejection. I'm vulnerable to these different things, right? There's a fear of being vulnerable. So even the Most High he don't have a fear, but the Most High can make himself vulnerable when he make us creatures of choice and put us in the cylinder of time. And he is love, and he want us to love him back, right? But the whole thing is you might think, man, we put the Most High in a vulnerable position. Yeah, we put the Most High in a vulnerable position. We said, man, we reject his love. We reject his correction. We reject his guidance, right? Because it's cylinder called time. He make you a creature of choice. He give you a little bit of sovereign power to make and choose. You know, the Bible said there's appointed man wants to die, and then there is death. Now you couldn't choose your race, your nationality, where you was born, when you was born, whether you're male or female, even though some people try to, well, I'm gonna change this, that, and the other, or whatever. I'm gonna change. I don't want to be black no more. I'm gonna bleach my skin, or I don't want to be white no more. I'm gonna tan. I do whatever to my skin, turn down my hue, whatever. No, be comfortable with the skin you in. You are fearfully and wonderfully made in the image and likeness of the Most High. Genesis 1:26 and 27, right? You are Imago Dei. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. And we can be vulnerable. It's okay to be vulnerable, right? To run out there, to be vulnerable. It's okay. You know what I mean? But I think when people think what is sacred, they don't want to have their stuff stepped on and kicked on. It's sacred to me, and it might not be that valuable to you, and you can just whatever. Nah. So what happens is folk hide that was sacred or valuable because they don't want to be caught in that vulnerability, almost a emotional incarceration. And but it stifles them. It stops our creativity. It affects our health. It increases anxiety, fear, bitterness, turmoil, torment. It affects so many different areas. So we have to get that perfect love, cast out fear. Yahushua, how can we walk and receive your perfect love? How can we walk in your perfect love, receive your perfect love? All right. Suppression leads to depression. When it's all bottled up on the inside, suppression leads to depression. Because even those who are sarcastic, they kind of get it out a little bit. And you might be like, dude, what's this dude? What's wrong with this dude? Or what's wrong with this sis? You know what I mean? They might say or do something. The response might not be, a level 7 or 8. And they clown it. It's like, bro, sis, what is wrong? It should have got a response of a 1 or a 2, you would think. But they way up here with their response, right? They way up there with their response. It's like, dude, what is wrong with you? So you have to learn. You have to be ready in the process. You have to have empathy. You have to have empathy. You got to be transparent, right? And so we gotta love one another, man. Because when we're free and we're transparent, we can love hard, right? And that love is contagious. We need his love. Perfect love casts out fear. So anyway, Battle Cry, I didn't need to go through the whole chapter. I'm not going to go through all of the chapters because you need to support this man, this project. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it. It's an audiobook too. If you can't get the audiobook, get the audiobook. Play it in your car because I call that auto university. You know what I mean? Because I'll be playing all kind of stuff as I'm driving to and from work. and I be listening to a lot of good stuff as I drive to and from work. And it's real good. And so Elephant Man Podcast Network, Grown Man Conversation dealing with elephants in the room. Like, subscribe, share. Elephant Man _ podcast for the IG / Elephant Man Podcast for Facebook and YouTube. All right, we will. I got to check out the Rumble Room and some of that other stuff that they have going on. I don't even know if I would want to be on a whole bunch of platforms if I'm not getting no dialogue and interaction. So we'll holler at you guys. Perfect.